Okay, so here we are at the Arboretum. Lots of horse chestnut trees, some thunderclouds, some raindrops. Yeah. Oh yeah. Parasol mushrooms. So what it is? Walk over towards it and see. Wow, eat them and see what happens. Oh yeah. Some kind of brown mushroom, not sure which one. Fawn mushrooms, some fairy ring mushrooms coming up out of the mulch here. Yeah. Little Smurf village. Yeah. Yeah, they're
They look like wine caps, but they're not.
not quite. Right, let's see. So this area here, there's some chestnut trees and other trees that they've been trying to grow. American chestnuts were a big part of the forest here, and they got pretty much wiped out by a disease. This one's not that. This is an ash tree. Ash trees here in Kentucky have largely been devastated by emerald ash borer, which is an insect. It's a beetle that drills holes in the wood and kills the trees. So there aren't many living ash trees left in Lexington. Some that people kind of saved, rescued from the fungus by treating them in time, but most of them have died. Yeah, you can see these trees have been grafted. So you've got one kind of nut tree grafted to the roots of another kind of nut tree. So you use the roots of the plant that you want the hardiness type of characteristics for, and the upper part of the plant that you want the fruit characteristics of. So this is a grafted walnut of some variety. This is called Rhodes heart nut, Juglans cordiformis. So it's in the walnut genus. This is a similar situation over here. You can really see where it's you know, a composite, a construct. And chickweed, yeah. This one, I think, is a hybrid Chinese and American chestnut. I'm not exactly sure which variety it is, but they got a few different ones growing here to see which ones grow. They've been experimenting with trying to grow Chinese and American hybrids that are mostly American chestnut, and then also trying to find and cultivate blight-resistant American chestnuts. That's been an ongoing project for many years now. This one is just starting to put out its leaves. And this is Diospyros, the persimmon tree. So this is basically the wood from Diospyros is called ebony, and the fruit from it is called persimmons. And there are a bunch of different species. And this is our local one, Diospyros virginiana. And they've pruned this to make it put out more branches that will bear fruit. But the berries on these are about the size of a small apple or a satsuma, and they get ripe in September and October. Usually they finish being ripe right around the time of deer season, so they're kind of part of the traditional cycle of large amounts of calories being available from certain plants at certain times, like the blackberries are earlier in the year, and the raspberries and the walnuts and everything like that. So where I'm from, people still hunt and gather for a lot of their food, and it's still a big part of the food economy and food culture in Eastern Kentucky. And so it's persimmons are part of that. They're not a super common tree out in the woods, but people do tend to not cut them down and to sometimes try and get them to grow as well. It got a lot colder.
Yeah.
Cooled right down, didn't this? So here's another nut tree. Let's see what variety this is. This is a Peria Bixby Hickon. So this is a hybrid of a pecan and a non-pecan hickory tree. Pecans are a type of hickory tree, but they have a little bit different leaves than the hickory trees that are not pecans. And so this is kind of a hybrid of the two. You can see these holes. These are made by a sapsucker, which is a little bird that comes along and pecks holes in these and drinks the juice, which is sugary.
Greedy little bird.
Yeah, well, they need lots of calories to keep their bird bodies flying. But you can see they're just kind of like straight lines of holes.
Does it harm the tree at all, or?
Not much, not really. I mean, it might act as a point of entry for insects, but you can see old trees that have these. It doesn't, it's the birds are kind of part of the deal of being a tree in this environment. So something like this is a hybrid of two different types of trees that grow around here. So it's not like it's really a foreign thing or anything.
In our backyard, and we have the little
massive.
that come.
That's massive.
Really cool.
Yeah, these ones are probably, I don't know, 20 years old or so. They're not, oh, well, they were planted here that long ago. They were probably 5 years old when they were planted, which might have been 25 years ago, but they're not super old. They're fairly young trees.
So what kind of is lots of different types of birds, or just is there one
There's
specific?
one particular kind called a sapsucker.
It's just called a sapsucker.
Well, like there's a yellow-bellied sapsucker, which I think is the most common one around here.
My
There are
son would
probably
know
other
that.
varieties of sapsucker in other places, maybe even other ones around here. I'm not super, I don't know all the birds. I know a lot of them, but not all of them. But yeah, the yellow-bellied sapsucker, which is a very distinctive looking bird once you get to recognize it. And
Take a picture of that
yeah,
bird. Yeah.
let's walk down this way a little ways. Here we got the Star of Bethlehem coming up again. We saw that yesterday.
It's like rescuing me from.
There is a rescue. There's a Bach flower essence that has that's made from that.
Have a bunch of fun. It's just like spring. It's like
Gifted me with all these things I've never seen.
We've been there and you just didn't see them.
Maybe.
Some combination.
Oh,
For some reason.
no, we go for a walk in the woods and I'm like jumping over stuff and Ryan's one day to walk. You walk on it.
Deer walk on it. They have little tiny feet. So this is an English walnut, Juglans regia, grafted onto what looks like the trunk of a black walnut. So you get the, grocery store walnut type fruit instead of the harder, thicker native walnut type fruit. But you still have the regular or, local walnut resilience and ability to withstand weather and stuff like that. And then here is more like just a plain old black walnut that has the same trunk all the way down instead of being Frankensteined together. And so these are in flower right now. They have their wind pollinated tassels hanging from them up there. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah. Um, those will fruit in August and September after the blackberries, but before the persimmons and pawpaws. Mm-hmm. It's a horse chestnut. Yeah, big. That one's been there a long time. Over here, got this stand of all these skinny trees. They're just starting to leaf out. See what they're doing here. Does it have any blooms on them? Here's the flower of this. It's very weird looking. This has actually already been pollinated and is working on turning into a fruit. But these are pawpaws, all these little skinny ones here. And this is probably all, these are probably all the same. They're probably all connected underground and they're self-pollinating. So some of them are connected underground. They're self-pollinating, so they make seeds that are genetically identical to themselves. So typically when you have a pawpaw patch, there will be they'll all have about the same genetics. I say it's self-pollinating, that's not right. They have to be pollinated by flies, but they have like similar genetics throughout the stand. Let me see if I can find any more flowers. It's a little bit late for them, but the flowers, when they first come out, they have oh, here we go. I'll just show you. This is the color of these flowers is sort of a burgundy type of color. And they don't smell good because they're meant to attract flies. But yeah, they're really neat looking.
Little bell.
Yeah, little bell-shaped flowers. You can see some of these trees are a lot thicker and some of them are pencil size. They're fairly, these ones are probably just a few years old. They're not new, but they're not very old. And then on the ground, this is what a new one looks like. They're very small for the first year or two.
Box elder, not poison ivy.
Box elder, not poison ivy. Yes. Yeah.
Which is never.
Some more of them. Here's box elder with the fruit on it. There's these little maple little helicopters. Yeah.
Kids love those.
Yeah. All kids love those. Cool. All right. Here we can take this side road to escape from them. It got too peoply, so we're taking a side path into a big stand of maples and other trees. So over here, it's kind of more like shady woods. Here we've got some twin leaf, definitely planted here, but it does all right in the shade. And some Solomon seal, it looks like. Yeah, Solomon seal with the little berries starting to develop on the underside of it. So these are both woods plants that we saw on our trip into the woods the other day, a few weeks ago. And over here we've got mayapple, American mandrake, coonberry. And this one's Solomon's plume, and you see it has slightly more alternate leaves, and then it has all the flowers at the end instead of being along the underside of the stem. So it looks very similar, but it's called Solomon's plume instead of Solomon's seal. And here with it is the ever-loved bloodroot. Some smaller bloodroot over here, and the mayapple. And it looks like maybe some anemone here.
Solomon seal has the little thing under it, right?
Yeah, Solomon's seal there along the underside. Solomon's plume, or also known as false Solomon seal. They're all clustered together at the end. Some coralberry here. This little stand of Solomon's plume at the base of the oak tree. It's very pretty. I'm glad we took this side path. It's nice in here. Got a tiny little grapevine growing next to these Star of Bethlehems.
Look at that giant buzzard back there. It's a big daddy.
Uh-huh.
It's huge.
Yeah, they get big. They get big. They keep growing until late August or so. They got to get big because there's not as much light coming down to the forest floor.
Pictures of my phone is fashion.
Oh, yeah. Got some wild geraniums coming up over here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice place for a forest creature for sure. You got the creeping winter creeper. Kind of gets in everywhere in the shady areas here. Although a few years ago, this was all winter creeper, and they pulled most of it out and planted a bunch of other stuff. Tried to mulch over it, but sometimes it grows up out of the mulch because it grows on trees and can survive getting put through a shredder. Here is our wonderfully thorned honey locust. So you can see it has really long thorns, and its thorns also have thorns. In some cases, its thorns have small thorns on them. So these are designed to keep mastodons from pushing the tree over. And so far, no mastodons have pushed any of them over in quite some time. But they're very they'll go through a tire. They're hollow, but they're very strong and very long thorns. Biggest thorns in our environment here. Yeah.
For a hospital visit.
Oh, it's just a flesh wound.
Even makes arrows, and if he doesn't have okay,
Blue jay, caw, caw.
doesn't have one of his. He's trying to do flint napping,
Oh yeah,
and so if he doesn't have an arrowhead that he can actually use those for.
Ooh. They'll do the
Later.
trick.
That's pretty good for an 11-year-old flint napper.
Right. So we got the broadleaf dock here. Various oak trees. Yeah. Black raspberry. It's purplish powder coated cane. Gnarly tangle of thorns on that tree. Oh, that's like for the squirrels, like it's an obstacle course. You can see on this black raspberry that it's in flower right now. Got little rose type flowers on it, which will turn into berries in a month or so.
Like that the raspberry leaves underneath are like white.
Yeah, the underside of the leaf's white. You can harvest raspberry leaves 3 or 4 times a year. I usually don't harvest them until after they've gone to fruit, unless they're just in a place where I don't want them to be and I cut them down. I just let them go to fruit first, and then you can harvest them a few more times that year, and they produce enough leaves that they can still spare that and still make fruit the following year. It's little tassels of oak. They don't have much pollen on them right now because it's just got wind and rain. Ash tree. See if it tells us anything about it. This is Biltmore ash, so it's a different species of ash than I guess what's usual. It's not marked as being a hybrid, but it might be. Ash trees also have long, straight branches, so they were traditionally used for a lot of things like spear handles and shovel handles and things like that. It needed to be straight and strong. Chunk of a bur oak that fell in the woods here many years ago. tree was probably about 400 years old when it died. But yeah, it's got them set up for children and other small creatures to crawl through. Ooh, wonder what these pink flags are. Go over here and look in case it's anything interesting. Don't know. It's probably just an area that they're trying to spray or something like that.
I want some of these. Gonna have to get some.
Oh yeah, once you get them, you'll never get rid of them. Hell,
Yeah, I could probably find. I might have some. I just haven't seen it. Have the snowdrop flowers.
oh yeah, those are nice.
Yeah.
We'll walk back up to this garden part and then walk through the garden area.
The helicopter, right? Yeah.
So cute.
So peaceful. What?
Oh,
30 frames. What was that cute little tree with the little pink flowers?
it's a buckeye or horse chestnut again. I think it's a red buckeye. Yeah.
Is that a little magnolia?
I think it is. I can't really tell from here. I think it might be fir trees. Some weeping apple trees. Here's a more ornamental variety of the locust. Doesn't have thorns. Well, not much anyway. That's a popular landscape tree. Yikes. Chirp.
Remember my name.
this area has a lot of cultivated stuff, a lot of garden plants, some native plants, but a lot of non-native plants, and a lot of things that have been traditionally cultivated for as ornamentals, but also for a variety of other reasons. Lots of peonies, daylilies, creeping juniper type things. I was saying this is like a creeping juniper type of thing. I'm not sure what that is. It's some ornamental thing. Ah, very nice smell to it. So here we go. Syringa. So basically it's a lilac of a sort. It's loveliest.
It can smell good.
Some hollyhocks. Agastache. It's some viburnum. We've got some native viburnums, but these are some non-native ones. Just layers of evergreens piled on top of each other, giving off a very evergreen type of smell. Some ornamental alliums here. They look very Dr. Seussish. And then we got Opuntia here, which is a native species, prickly pear, our only native cactus here in Kentucky. Yeah, they love to grow along fences. They're fire tolerant, so they can get burned up and come back. Got some river birches growing outside the fence here. Yellow birch also. Uh-huh. Fountains and some other things. Let me go up there in a minute. Well, this is hemlock tree. It's got tiny little cones on it right now. They'll get about twice that long. Here's last year's. This stays pretty small. So this is a very nutritive tree, and every part of it is used medicinally. But the leaves are they're nourishing. They've got a lot of nutrients in them. They've got vitamin C in them. It's called anetta in the Seneca language that people spoke where I was born in Western New York, and has a long tradition of medicine in their culture. It's I'm not sure why when people decided to give it a name in English, they called it the same hemlock, which already belonged to a poisonous herb.
I know.
That doesn't look anything like it. And so people always ask, so is this poisonous? And it's like, no, it's not poisonous. It's actually not too bad tasting and pretty nutritious. But English speaking people decided to give it the same name as a poisonous plant that they brought with them from, well, it didn't even grow in England. It grows originally in the Mediterranean areas, further south in Europe, but it will grow in England, and it will grow just about anywhere. But these hemlock trees in Kentucky, these ones have probably been treated, but the hemlock trees in Kentucky in general, a lot of them have died off because of an introduced insect called the woolly adelgid that eats into their bark and causes branches to die, and then eventually the trees get weak and fall. And so you used to have lots of the woods made up of hemlocks. You'd have certain hillsides and certain areas that were just certain little valleys that were just all hemlock woods. And the streams that ran through them would be cooler than the streams elsewhere in the woods because they were shadier. And certain animals depended on the hemlock, that deep level of shade, to have the cooler temperature of streams and things like that. So that's all threatened by the woolly adelgid. These are what some birch flowers look like. They start hitting me in the head when the wind was blowing. So here they wanted to get on camera. Here they are. Oh, hey, hey.
So pretty.
Quack, quack. Got a redbud tree. This is a white pine. Also nutritive, decongestant. It's actually one of the plants that I talked about during the first night of class. White pine was one of the plants I talked about. So here it is in the last class as well. You can see where it's leaking sap further up the stem there. The sap is very potent medicine, and the infusion or extract of the needles is a less intense version of the same thing. That sap will come out where a branch has been cut, or sometimes it just comes out on its own from cracks in the bark.
White pine trees for my birthday in October. And I planted in my yard. And it was so good.
That's great. Got some viburnum bushes here. Some wisteria vines. This wooden structure has seen better days, but don't suppose it'll fall on our heads. Yeah, there's the trunk of that wisteria plant. Looks quite massive.
Love wisteria. Planted some on a right in the front porch.
Oh yeah,
It's so good. The frost killed a few of its leaves because it was out a little too early, but it's got some new ones. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's kind of hardy, I'm assuming, but a lot of people are trying to get rid of it. I don't think you can exactly kill it.
here's a little medicinal herb garden section, and there's all kinds of stuff here. Got fennel here as well as here. Very misty looking. Over here you got oregano, very broad spectrum antibacterial, decongestant, things like that. What's this one about? It says sage here, but there's not any there at the moment. What's this supposed to be? Garlic. And this is tarragon. It's also an artemisia. it's in the same genus as the mugwort from earlier today, but it's much less bitter, somewhat edible. I mean, it's, you wouldn't want to eat a big bowl of it necessarily, but it's a good spice, good herb to cook with. Back here we've got lemon balm, a hero of the pandemic and other febrile conditions. I've used so much lemon balm in recent years. I'm very, very eternally grateful to this plant. Some mint, rather a lot like what we found out in the swamp yesterday. Marsh. Yeah. Some fennel. Just probably not planted there. But it's there. The lavender just starting to put out new green growth alongside of last year's grayish stuff. Lavender is called Luslia in Irish, in my language, and means the gray herb because it looks very gray much of the year. But when it's just coming out, it looks green. And this is sage. Here are some dead leaves from last year and some new stuff coming out, including the inflorescence, which hasn't opened yet. But this is the original Salvia officinalis, the original plant called sage. And there are lots of other plants called sages because they're similar, that are either part of the Salvia genus or part of the Artemisia genus, like tarragon, which is not closely related at all. But it's a good herb for breaking up congestion and lots of other things. Here you got an ornamental version of Solomon's steel, it looks like. Kind of got variegated foliage, but essentially the same plant. Yeah, that's catnip right here. Catnip. It's a little more pointy than lemon balm, but very similar. It has not the same flavor and smell, but similar medicinal properties to it. And then over on this side, we've got some pennyroyal. This is Mentopelagium. This is the original pennyroyal, not the kind that grows in the swamp, which is Hedioma pelagioides. Here we got a little asparagus plant coming up, seemingly on its own. Maybe they planted this here. I don't know. And then there's lyre-leaved sage growing also. Yarrow, just the very beginnings of the leaves of yarrow. But this is a native salvia that is kind of weedy and grows around here. This is Arborvitae, which is Thuja occidentalis. So people named this plant Arborvitae because they thought that it was a plant from a story about one of the French people who were some of the first people to go up into the Great Lakes region. And no, let's see. I can't remember exactly where they were, but somewhere in present day Canada, and they were one of the first French expeditions to go up there, and they all got sick with something. And the native people who spoke some kind of Iroquoian language gave them an evergreen as medicine. And the evergreen was called Aneta. And later on, people started selling this under the name Arborvitae or Arbre de Vie in French, meaning tree of life, with the thought that it was that plant. But this plant isn't called Aneta in Iroquoian languages. The hemlock is. So I think that, people, the original people who recorded the event, the French people, they didn't say what the evergreen was, only that it was an evergreen. So someone came to the conclusion that it was this. But I think to get enough vitamin C to treat scurvy, which is what a lot of people think the illness was, you wouldn't be able to do it with this plant because it would make you sick before you got enough of it into your system.
Very cool.
But it's got a neat leaf, and it is a good medicinal plant. It's a good decongestant. It's a good bacteriostatic topically. but it's not a good nutritive because it will make people throw up if they take a larger dose of it. What you see over here? Some agrimony. Agrimunia. This also grows in the woods around here. It's not native, but it's introduced here, I'm pretty sure. But it's naturalized here, and it's not invasive. And you'll often find it growing on paths in the woods. Back there, we've got some pokeweed getting tall towards the back of the bed there.
That says St. John's wort. Is that
It's some kind of St. John's wort. I don't think
Weird
it's like
looking
the
one.
usual St. John's wort, but it's some kind of a hypericum. Here it is.
Last week, the green, it looked like, it looked so. So, I'm gonna have to say, it looks, and for the reason, they don't look anything alive. It's really, yeah.
Here's some more asparagus. So asparagus, especially the root of asparagus, is used to strongly move the lymph in the lymph system. So it is a good medicinal plant, but especially the root is used. The top, of course, is used for food. But when the top gets big like it is now, it will actually sometimes have that strong lymph moving properties as well, where it can decrease lymphatic swelling and sometimes cause diarrhea. We got mountain mint. Supposes to be mountain mint.
looks like oregano.
Yeah, looks like oregano. Got a sign for columbine back there, but it's been crowded out by whatever is growing around it.
There's a sign that says valerian back there.
There was valerian there last year. I don't see it right now. Yeah, so maybe it's just not up yet. There's more of the agrimony. Peppermint.
Pineapple mint. Never
Pineapple
heard
mint,
of that.
yeah. Mostly ornamental variety. Oh. Just more mints. Kentucky kernel mint. So yeah, some different hybrid mints. Mints hybridize freely. Mojito mint. Lavender mint. Which kind of I don't know, lavender was already a mint. It's already in the mint family, but
Talked about it, right?
yeah.
So if you, someone gave me oregano from like, I don't know, it's a Bonnie's plant or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a couple years old. Can I use that? I've been, treating it organically. I didn't put
Yeah.
anything on it. Can I use that medicinally? At
Yeah,
this
you can use
point?
that medicinally. Yeah.
'Cause I don't typically use things come from Lowe's or something.
Right, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean it's
It came
probably
back and it's
fine.
huge this year.
Is it?
Yes.
Nice.
So I was like, oh man,
Did it overwinter outside?
it did.
Nice.
Yeah, in my garden beds. I have some beds that I do vegetable garden. My spearmint came back too this year. It overwintered as well.
The Japanese red pine growing over here. Let's see. Got all these pollen producing cones, but they're not quite pollinating yet. Not very much. There are some. These will produce absolutely copious amounts of pollen later on in like a week or two. Yeah, yarrow's great. It's a lovely medicine. Oh, here's some columbine. This is the Rocky Mountain columbine, purple one. It's
What's
not
that
the kind
little
of.
purple flower?
I'm not sure what that is. We've got some stachys. This is a wound wart, can be poulticed on wounds. It's absorbent and astringent. Here we've got wood poppy. Saw wood poppy in bloom not too long ago on herb walk, and now here it is in fruit. So this is wood poppy at its full size with seed capsules on it. This is a ripe seed capsule, and that's the unripe seed capsule. So that's member of the poppy family. Got some of the same attributes that made poppies famous: sedative and pain relieving. And it's native here, and it's very similar to Chelidonium, which grows in Europe, but it's a slightly different variation on the same theme. That is Stachys woundwort. It's got various different common names, but it's always Stachys. Let's see, we'll go through here. Here we've got some more bloodroot growing and some hortensias. These are shooting stars growing here. And lots of bloodroot, and then back there we've got some, looks like some orchids starting to unfurl. There. Yeah. And come around here. Got another giant elephant garlic there, ornamental garlic plant. They have such big, lovely flowers, and the garlic from them is good. I say ornamental, but they're edible too. They make perfectly serviceable large bulbs of garlic. We got fishies, we got nymphia, pond lilies. And we've got woad. This is Isatis tinctoria, otherwise known as woad. The above ground parts have traditionally been used to make a blue dye, or the blue part of a green dye also. So this is that blue dye has been used as sort of a pain relieving type of thing when it's used on the skin. And then the underground part of it is a very strong stimulant to the immune system, and something that I would pretty much use in somebody who was immunocompromised. And as you can see from looking at it, I don't know if you can tell this from looking at it, but it is a member of the mustard family, has very mustardy looking greens to it. In Britain and Northern Europe, where it's native, it's a very weedy plant. Over here, it pretty much only grows if you plant it. Grows if you grow it. All right. I think that's a fitting place to stop for today. Thanks so much for coming, and I'm so glad to have had you all in this course this whole time. And definitely interested in and looking forward to doing a second year with everybody who wants to, and that will start not this Thursday but the following Thursday.
I can't wait.
And I will email
So
everybody
excited.
about that. Yeah, I'll email everybody about that. And for this, so I'll email everybody about that, but I'm really excited about it too.
Me
To
too.
be able to get into some more in-depth, more advanced level stuff. All right. Well, Rachel, if you're still with us, I'm going to close out now. Yes, thank you. And I will look forward to talking to everybody again soon. And of course, if now or at any point in the future you have any questions or anything you want to run by me, then feel free to.
already do.
I have
Gonna
dozens
block
of
my
plants.
fingers at this point.
I feel so bad.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's good. It's what I'm here for. All right, I'm going to end this.